What's up, Nerf Herders? Hope you're all doing well out there and having a great day. So, just got done watching the remake for Castle Freak, which is a 90s horror film from Stuart Gordon with Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton. So, classic genre actors that have worked together in multiple films and such. And I was intrigued and excited for this because I feel Castle Freak, although, it's kind of a classic film, probably hasn't aged the best unless you had seen it and kind of grew up with it in that time. I feel like this is a movie that could definitely benefit from a new take on it. And they kind of tell you right off the bat that this is a bold reimagining. And they definitely are giving you a very different take from what the original Castle Freak was. So we're going to talk about this here a little bit. But before we jump into it, if you could hit that subscribe button, please click the bell for notifications to keep up with the latest here at Nerf Herders Studios. We are trying to get this channel built up, and we will be back with plenty more content. So we're going to dive into the review here. This will be non-spoiler, and then we'll jump into a little bit of spoilers because there is a post-credit scene that I definitely wanted to kind of harp back to. So we'll jump into that at the end here. And I got a fun little story at the end of the video if you stick around. So the original Castle Freak and this remake, new reimagining of Castle Freak still fall in the same boat. We got a castle, there's a freak in a castle. I mean, it's really as simple as the title says. But in this one here, we've got this lady who is blind, and she's basically inheriting this castle after her mother's death, and there's still a freak living within this castle. And they show up, we kind of go about things, it's her and her boyfriend, and they're basically wanting to sell the place, get rid of it. She's got super, heightened senses from being blind, and she's starting to pick up on the fact that there's something else here. And from there, the movie kind of goes all over the place. It feels really disjointed at times because there's so many different things kind of happening at once with almost different genres. Some of the movie feels like it's trying to take itself as a serious horror film. Sometimes the way some of these characters, one in particular, is acting is they're going for just really silly B schlock type films. And it's a lot of stereotypical things kind of happening throughout the movie. But if you can get around some of that stuff, I feel what this movie did a really good job capturing was an old school horror feel. A lot of old horror movies that have stood the test of time now, if they would have came out today, probably aren't going to be accepted as well as they were back then, and how they've kind of aged and people have grown up with them and passed them down and showed their kids and, whatever have you. This movie did a good job capturing what that old horror vibe was, and I feel like that's what they were going for with this, and you could kind of tell that's what they were trying to do right from the get-go. As soon as the title hits, it's an old school, like, Universal Monster look with the font and just credits right on the screen, just Castle Freak, some credits on the bottom there, and you could kind of tell that's the vibe they were going for. So if you can kind of get yourself in a time machine and go back and live this movie through a younger version of yourself, or like you're watching this 20, 30 years ago, I feel that's what they went for. And if you can get yourself in that, you could probably find some things to enjoy with this movie here. And I did find myself enjoying a good part of the movie. Just some of the goofy, schlocky stuff was a little bit hard to get by. But anywho, with basically what we kind of got here is this full-blown reimagining, which I'll get into a little bit in the spoiler section here. And, this Castle Freak is kind of maneuvering around, spying, and I feel like they showed a little too much in the beginning there. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of mystery where you kind of just see the camera angle as if the eyes are looking. In this case, every single time that people were being spied on, they had to show you that the freak was there spying. So you saw everything that was happening. There was really no mystery or, any kind of suspense to it. It's just like, oh, we're looking, boom, now you're going to see the freak. Oh, we're looking again, now we're going to show you the freak again. So they didn't hold anything back. They really kind of spit it out there. And ultimately what this movie turned into was just a love letter to Stuart Gordon. I felt like a love letter to old school horror films, and there's definitely some Lovecraftian things going on in there. They kind of just made this huge hybrid, and I feel like it's a love letter to old school horror ultimately. So if you can get into that mindset, like I said, there's probably a lot to enjoy here. And I'm going to go into the spoilers because there's a couple things I want to talk about here that I don't want to kind of ruin the movie. So if you've not seen it yet, go check it out. Come back, watch the rest of the video here. We're going into spoilers right now. The one character that was kind of driving me nuts throughout this was the professor character, because this person was so stereotypical and just had the answers for everything. Just every little thing to just push the narrative along for the movie. It was just explaining every little detail on and on and on and on, and just had all this knowledge about everything. And the way that he was delivering all of his lines was as monotone as possible, and just didn't fit the tone of everything else going on in the movie. It was just very much just like, this is the Necronomicon, And these ancient ones were once here. And it didn't fit well with everything else. I know what they were going for with this character. I could totally tell. It's just, if they wanted to go that route, they should have kept everything else similar to that. It was almost like they took a character out of Troll 2 and tried to merge it in with like a Universal horror film. And it just clashed at times for me, and it took me out of it a little bit. Everything with the Castle Freak itself, I thought was done pretty well. The gore, the costume, makeup effects, and all that looked really good in this here, and everything worked well for me. And this was definitely a reimagining of what the original Castle Freak was. There was a lot more going on to this here, a big, greater picture with getting these sisters back together who were twins, and there was this whole, the Necronomicon and these kind of satanic rituals and getting these sisters back together. And that's where a lot of that Lovecraftian stuff came in. The ending was super wild, how they kind of brought all that together. And what I liked about the original Castle Freak that they definitely paid homage to in this here is that gothic horror feel. Things that were just, almost sleazy in a sense. There was that one really wild scene in the original Castle Freak where he's kind of like nursing off of Barbara Crampton, like biting on her and stuff like that, like on her breast, which is just out there stuff that you don't really get in movies, but it's kind of just sleazy kind of film stuff. And they definitely had some of that going on in here. The scene when they, had killed the one chick when the guy was chained up and blindfolded, and then the Castle Freak just jumped on top and just kind of like continued to ride him was super far out there. And honestly, I almost wish they would have taken that a little bit further. It's like, all right, you've already went this far, just drive it home a little bit more. But there was definitely some sleazy kind of stuff in here that you would expect from, like Full Moon Pictures and, stuff Charles Band puts out, just interesting, wild things like that. And Barbara Crampton, who was in the original, ironically, was a producer on this film too. So I thought that was really nice. There was one character in here too, who was kind of like played the realtor, but had a bigger role with everything that I thought would have been perfect to try to slide Jeffrey Combs in just to kind of get him into the movie. Felt like he could have worked out really good in that role. So I don't know if they tried to and things didn't work out, but that would have been really cool to see Jeffrey Combs pop in for a little bit. But outside of that there, I enjoyed it. It's just the tone, kind of mismatching a little bit took me out of the film here and there. I would recommend checking it out if you are a fan of those old school schlocky kind of horror films that have some sleaze in it, because this movie really did everything it could to pay homage to that. So if you like those films, this is going to be up your alley for sure. And what I wanted to talk about here is this post-credits scene too, because this came out of absolutely nowhere. Everybody wants to build these shared universes and stuff now, but the one character, the professor, who is this Necronomicon master apparently, pops in this like mid post-credit scene with the book, and you see these two guys sitting at a desk, and he walks in and says West, and immediately my head's going to Reanimator, and then they kind of show this vial sitting on the desk of the Reanimator juice, dude. Like, it's right there glowing green, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? And the dude kind of turns. They don't really give you a full look at his face and stuff, and it kind of cuts, and I'm like, that's so weird. Why are you dragging Reanimator into this here? So I don't know if that was just a cutesy thing to do because of Stuart Gordon, or if they're, going to build a shared universe here, and that's what they're going for. It's kind of like this horror shared universe, because everybody's trying to do that now. It's almost like movies have become one giant commercial or advertisement to get you to go see the next one, so I wonder if they're planning on doing more with this. I'm gonna look into it to see if there were any plans. I hope they're not gonna reboot Reanimator, but if they're gonna do something to tie in Herbert West into this here, then I'd be interested to see where they went with that, because that caught me way off guard. But nevertheless, that is Castle Freak. Enjoyed it for the most part. I think it's going to be a divisive film. I think you're going to get people that love it, people that absolutely hate it, and then people kind of in my boat. Like, I'm kind of riding in the middle with it. It was a decent watch. Have my issues with it, but I think it was a justifiable reimagining of the original for sure. So that's where I'll kind of leave it there, guys. If you are new to Nerf Herders Studios, please make sure you hit that subscribe channel and click the bell for notifications. Keep up with the latest. We will catch you all in the next video.